Coming out this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Arielle.
Instead of just doing the rhythm section live, I decided to do the entire thing live in one take and recording half of it anyway to tape. I met Brian and I was telling him that I was putting together a guitar business, that I was going to be having my own guitar line because people just kept asking me, where do I get one of your guitars? And it was his idea. He said, well, who's doing it for you? And I just said, my friend and I were going to put out a couple guitars a month, and that's going to be that. And he said, well, why doesn't Brian May Guitars do it? And I said, Brian, it's 25 and a half. And he said, well, it should be 24. And I asked him, forgetting that his guitar was 24. I said, why should we do 24? And he said, well, my guitar is 24, and I think it sounds okay. And I was like, oh. You actually, I can show you here. I know this is broadcast, but just so you guys can see.
That's cool.
Take a look. See the difference?
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
Thank you, Mr. Vasey. My name is Aaron Day, lead guitarist in UK band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with music videographer and photographer on the sofa.
I know.
Mr. Vasey. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing alright. We're all good, aren't we?
Yeah, we're alright, man. We've got Arielle on the show.
Yes, we do.
So, now, this got me... I mean, I'm rebuilding my vinyl collection. Have I told you about this? Have you seen how many vinyls I'm slamming on my Instagram story?
I have seen the... Oh, I've just got some more vinyl this week.
I've actually just got some more vinyl this week. I'll have you know. I'm rebuilding the collection because when I was a teenager, I mainly had vinyl because my dad passed it down. And I sold it all to get a tattoo.
Oh, my God.
It's terrible. Don't do that, kids.
No.
Don't be a dickhead. I think it's good, though, because I think I've changed a lot since. Like, a lot of it I might have sold now anyway. Because there's a lot of stuff in there that isn't where I'm at musically now. Like, a lot of my vinyl collection now is 60s, 70s. A few newer stuff, like I want to get the new Greta Van Fleet album on vinyl.
Right.
I'd like to get some Crownland stuff on vinyl. You know, maybe some Blackstone albums, just because. But then again, I like vinyl not for heavier stuff. Even though you get that clarity, I love the older stuff and the crackle. So anyway, I went into a vinyl shop in Matlock that my dad recommended to me called Spinderella. It does vintage guitars as well.
Okay.
And when I walked in, this is weird. This isn't bollocks. But I went in and I didn't say hello to him because I thought he didn't want to talk to me, but he did talk to me. And he put an album on. I was like, oh, this is it's awesome, this is. I said, oh, what's this? And he's like, oh, this is Queen 1. Right, and I know Queen 2 really well. But them first two Queen albums are really heavy guitar work, particularly for the time. And then obviously they went a bit more sort of... very sort of a bit more theatrical with Sheer Heart Attack and Night at the Opera, but yeah, that was like immediately I was like, God, I need to get on my Queen vinyl. Are you much of a Queen fan?
I went through a phase when I was younger where I did. Interestingly, because here we go, this is one that will be very popular with people. Can you remember the first Pro Evolution soccer game?
Oh yeah.
Right, now,
very
deep cuts, people. At the end
you play a lot of Pro Evo now, don't you?
Not now, but if you were to win a competition on that, like a trophy, they used to play We Are the Champions.
Right, okay.
Which was pretty cool. Yeah. And then, I started listening to like more Queen through that, because I was like, oh, this is cool. And yeah, it's one of those that I kind of dipped in and out of through the years. You know,
I definitely recommend, because I think they're one of them bands that get put in this wrong sphere of being like people take them as the post-1980 Queen, which is Radio Gaga kind of magic, and there's some real killer rock stuff in them years, you know, and stuff like News of the World, which is the album that's got We're the Champions and We Will Rock You on. And Night of the Opera has got like Death on Two Legs, you know, as well as Bohemian Rhapsody, Seaside, you know, it's just there's some really cool stuff in there, you know. And I had Night of the Opera and Day of the Races particularly with them, the albums that my dad gave me, and it was like, oh, this is cool, you know. And I do think of Brian May as being an ultimate guitar hero. So I can see why Arielle, and it's really cool in the interview actually to hear how much of their relationship isn't based around guitar in a weird way. You know, she speaks really highly, and you can see in it, she talks about it how much, you know, he just means in terms of their friendship, in terms of around mental health and all the different aspects that they talk about when they meet up, and I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, and we get into some heavy gear chats.
It's not hard for me to do that. I turn it on very easily. Very good.
Which, you know, for the guitarists out there, this could be the episode for you. And you can hear that now.
So we're here with Arielle, singer-songwriter, blues musician. Thanks for joining us, Arielle.
Yay! Thanks for having me.
That's cool. So one thing that we like to do on the podcast is go like right back to the beginning of like a musician's journey. So how did it all start for you? Like, did guitar come first for you, or was it vocals?
Yeah, it was vocals, actually. I was put into a choir when I was 5, and I wanted to play guitar, but my parents didn't think that was what a young girl should be doing. So they put me in choir instead. So I learned how to play the piano and was reading music and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I was 10 that I got a guitar. But I started off just being classically trained with piano. I played trumpet and violin and the flute as well when I was younger.
Wow, so even though it wasn't what you wanted, I suppose it laid that foundation in sort of a musical upbringing for you then to take on the guitar at age 10.
Exactly. I think it was, even though I didn't know how to directly apply what I had learned with the choir stuff and with sheet music and reading all that, it still helped me in the long run, for sure.
And did you when you got into guitar, was it a similar approach in that you kind of went into the more classical side of it, or did you start to get into the kind of the blues side of it quite quickly?
I definitely started off with more of the classical style guitar, even though my first guitar was an electric. And it wasn't until way later that I started getting into blues and rock and stuff. I just wasn't good enough. And I'm sure you've heard beginners try to play that kind of stuff. It's hard. It's hard when you just pick up the guitar to go for a rock guitar solo, So
particularly with the blues as well, because so much of it's based on feel and technique, and a lot of that I think you get as you continue your musical journey. Do you know what I mean? And you listen to different things, and you get that influence come through. So I imagine it takes a little bit of time to tap into that. In terms of your own journey, were you always a singer-songwriter? Did you always want to come from kind of yourself and have a band around you, or were you in bands, as you was growing up?
Well, I actually just wanted to be a guitar player. That's what I always wanted to do, is just play guitar for a band. I always wanted a band. And as I started going to music school, and before then, from about 13 on, I was in a bunch of different bands, and they kept falling apart. We had differences in what we wanted to do and egos and blah, blah. And I was just like, maybe I should just do the solo artist thing. I'm like, well, who's going to sing? I'm like, well, I guess it'll be me. So it was an accident. It wasn't something I wanted to do. It just came out of necessity, really, to do the solo project thing.
Cool. So did that work in terms of your writing? I mean, like when you're saying you wanted to be a guitarist in the band, were you writing songs at that point, or was it more that as soon as you had, it seems to be a standard thing is that people get pushed into this vocalist role, and then it just sticks. But as soon as you got into that role, was it like, were you chief songwriter and that just worked with being the vocalist?
Yeah, I mean, that helps. It's something I miss, actually, is I really do love collaborating with songwriting, but and I write with other people, and there's nothing like bringing a song to a band and like kind of seeing it come to life. But I would say more, as I decided that I was just going to do it on my own, my songwriting really wasn't great because I relied on other people to write music in a way. So it took a long time to develop my own style of writing without anybody else.
No, I appreciate your honesty there, because you're completely right. I mean, for myself in the band, I'd struggle if I had to go alone, because I like to bounce ideas off people. Sometimes I'll bring like almost a skeleton and people add bits to it, and then that's what gets the finished article. Whereas I imagine it can be a lonely place sometimes when it's all about your expression.
Yeah, it can be. And then you get bored of yourself because, if you have certain ruts that you'll get into for a while, it's like, oh, I always do that. Or the song kind of sounds exactly like the other song. So it happens.
That's cool. So your new album, Analog Girl in a Digital World, is out May 7th. This is your 9th release, I believe. For myself, I found out about you through the new wave of classic rock group that's over here. You have like a real distinctive retro sound, light and look as well. For this album, did you approach it differently this time compared to your previous releases? Whether that be in the writing or the recording process?
Completely. The last album that I did, Suspension Dimension, was, if you look at my releases, there's a theme that you can start to see, that I'm big on not having too many variables, because once you have too many, you don't know what the thing was that you changed that was better or worse. If you change a ton, it's hard to know. So you'll find in each recording, I would change small things. And it started probably around Mindline. I started throwing in, or maybe My Gypsy Heart, which is 4 albums ago now. And I started throwing in different styles, different ways of approaching the guitar. And then Mindline was a few more. And then Suspension Dimension was, I recorded almost live, at least the rhythm section. The bass and drums was live. But the way that I picked those songs was I was playing my new songs live and seeing which ones people liked the most. Cool. And then whatever people liked the most, I would throw on an album. But with Analog Girl in a Digital World, the way I approached that one was just to have a concept album. So all of the songs were written to go on the album, and they were written together. Without worrying whether or not they're my strongest song or whatever, they just fit in that area, which I was inspired to do by Tommy, the Tommy album by The Who. And then, of course, instead of just doing the rhythm section live, I decided to do the entire thing live in one take, and recording half of it anyway to tape. So the way that I approached it was completely different, but in the whole scheme of the past 4 or 5 albums that I've done, it kind of fits in line with the direction I was going.
Oh, that's really cool. For me personally, mate, I love concept albums, because I think that you can tell that sometimes, like you say, you can get bogged down in what you want to achieve with an album, you know, in terms of the different textures. Whereas when you've got the focus of trying to tell a story, I think it comes across a lot more comfortable. Like I love Aqualung by Jethro Tull, because I just feel like it's an entire story that gets told, and I feel like it's weird. We were chatting about films when we were talking bollocks before we came on, and it's similar with films. You know, you want to feel like you've got an outcome at the end of it that you can walk away from and feel sort of like it's a finished thing that you've listened to and been a part of. And concept albums, I really get that from. So I think it's really cool that you've chosen to go that. Is it the first time you've done that then? The kind of focused concept album?
Yes.
Cool.
First time.
Now looking forward to it. That sounds great.
Thank you.
So, alongside your solo career, a lot of people will know you because of your collaborations, obviously, Brian May. How did you guys meet, and how did this relationship start?
Well, we met in 2007, so we've been friends for a long time. And we met at a bookstore called Book Soup off of Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood when I was going to music school there. And I had found out that he was doing a book signing. He'd just gotten his PhD in astrophysics. And I had to go meet him, of course, because he is my biggest guitar hero. And I walked up, I had my guitar with me, and we became instant friends, really. So for about a year, we were just emailing, kind of pen pal buddies. And then he asked if I wanted to come to the UK and audition for We Will Rock You. And that was in 2008. And so since then, in 2007, we've been friends and talking, and most of what we've connected with has nothing to do with guitar or music at all, really. He kind of welcomed me into his family, and we went to shows together and talked about mental health stuff, which we both kind of talk about publicly, that we struggle with depression and stuff, and talking about that and how to have a better life. And then from time to time, when I've been coming through the UK to tour, I would meet up with Brian for lunch. And about 3 years ago now, it'll be 3 years next month, I met Brian, and I was telling him that I was putting together a guitar business that I was going to be having my own guitar line, because people just kept asking me, where do I get one of your guitars? And it was his idea. He said, well, who's doing it for you? And I just said, my friend and I were going to put out a couple guitars a month, and that's going to be that. And he said, well, why doesn't Brian May Guitars do it? So, 3 years ago, almost to the month, we started collaborating on the guitar. And that guitar is a combination of my guitar, my original guitar that I built from scratch with a friend of mine that I call two-tone. And it's combined with Brian's guitar, the Red Special, to create its own entity. So we have a model that just came out last month.
That's really cool. I mean, it's something as a guitarist myself that I think you kind of dream of a little bit. And I think that, like you say, I do the same thing myself, where I end up with some sort of like a Frankenstrat, or I'll take a Jazz Master and rip it apart and relic it and stuff. And I think that's part of me, is that me trying to explore that dream of having a signature guitar myself, so I think it must be really cool to be able to have that design, and then be able to have someone like Brian come to you and want to kind of turn it on its head a little bit. Because was it quite different when Brian came in from that original design? Was it, because like you said, I think you worded it as a marriage between, or a meeting of the minds, and how did Brian come in and kind of make that more of a Brian May Guitars sort of design?
Well, actually, before he had seen the guitar and he'd heard the guitar before, but one of the things that he had asked me, which was we were just at lunch, just hanging out. Again, I never thought that our conversation would go in the direction that it did. But his question was, what's the scale length? And I said, the scale length is 25.5, which for anyone who's not a guitar geek, it's just the length of the neck. And depending on which brand of guitar you use, they typically have certain sizes. So the measurement in inches, Fenders stay at about 25.5 inches long, which is where two-tone is. And Gibsons are like 24 and 3/4. And Brian's is at 24. So his is 1.5 inches shorter than mine, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in context, it's really a lot. There's really no bigger difference that you can go to, at least the way that we have and know guitars. And I said, Brian, it's 25.5. And he said, well, it should be 24. And I asked him, forgetting that his guitar was 24. I said, why should we do 24? And he said, well, my guitar is 24 and I think it sounds okay. And I was like, oh, 24 it is. So that was one of the things that we changed, was the scale length. So if you actually, I can show you here. I know this is podcast, but just so you guys can see.
That's cool.
You take a look. See the difference?
Yeah,
that's
really
killer.
tell.
So that's a pretty significant difference.
Yeah, how was it for you, Arielle? Like, as you've been kind of getting ready for the live shows, because I imagine this feels different in the hand, quite significantly.
Yeah, it does. I mean, once you're playing it, the way that the guitars are built, when you're holding it, where the bridge is, the reason why two-tone feels so long is because I moved the neck to the left. So it's a little bit farther out of the body. So that one is also that way. So it ends up not feeling that much different. The only thing I guess would be we put bigger frets on it than mine. So, a few things like that changed. Honestly, it's not that different. The sound is different. There's definitely a sonic difference between a longer neck versus a shorter neck. And also one of the things we changed was the headstock, of course. So to stay true to Brian's brand, we have his guitar headstock, which is it's 3-on-3 versus my reverse headstock. That also changes the tone quite a bit. It's been interesting. I have played both of them on the road. Before COVID, I had played the Brian May guitar for a couple years, the prototypes. And it sounds really good. It's just like any guitar that's new, it has a certain element of sounding new. You know what I'm saying? There's like
of course. Yeah.
The longer that something is, an object is what it is, it gets to warm up and age nicely. And my guitar has been doing that now for 13 or 14 years. So it's impossible to compare them in that way. But it hung in as I use it as an E flat guitar or a drop D guitar. And it's great.
Cool. From a sonic, more like you're saying, with a sonic perspective, in terms of the pickups from your original guitar, is that if Brian May Guitars tried to make a pickup set that's very similar to your original guitar, or is it the similar pickups that you'd put in when you made the guitar?
Yeah, they're not made by the same people. The ones that I have are the original Burns Trisonics that Brian used to use in his guitars, but now they have somebody else make them. I don't actually. I should probably ask who's making them, but I don't know. I know that they just changed manufacturers for the pickups, but they are based around my pickups, so they sound similar.
Cool.
That's cool. Going back to the album, one of my personal favourites on the album is "Living in a Fortress." For you, yeah, I like that one. Is there a personal favourite for you, or one that you tell people to have a look out for on the album?
When I want people to understand sonically where I'm trying to go, I tell people inside and outside. I think production-wise, that captured the vibe that I'm trying to create. But as far as the story that I relate to the most, I would probably say Living in a Fortress 2, because it really summarizes how I feel most of the time. The whole, I don't feel like I belong in the world, and I just kind of observe it from afar sometimes, and observe how there's this game in the, I guess, in the chorus, I guess you could say, or the B part. In the human realm, we play our game, we criticize another's gain, and then and people know too much and they know it too well. And then at the end, I say, you and your opinion could go to hell, because it's funny too, because the song in a way is actually a way that I can gauge who cares about the way that I feel. I had some people say, oh, you shouldn't say that. Like, great, but you're giving me your opinion when I'm literally telling you I don't want your opinion. So I do something that triggers someone's opinion, and if they can just accept it and say, okay, whether or not they approve of it or like it doesn't matter, it's there. And I think especially in the music business and in the way that our society is structured, it's like, yes, no, now, you need to have everything now, instant gratification, like it, hate it. There's very little room for just creative freedom in a way that's accepted. Oh, it doesn't fit on the radio. Oh, it's the song's too long, or it doesn't fit in the box that I'm used to. And sometimes it's just exhausting to hear people's opinions, especially when I don't ask. If you want to have an opinion, not you specifically, but if someone in general wants to have an opinion, that's fine. But does it have to be constantly placed on you? And I'm not sure I think social media has just made it this thing where it's like, you can just comment and say, oh, that sucks, or whatever. And instead of just being able to be like, not my thing, but go for it. It's just weird. So yeah, I can really, that song definitely reflects my life and the way that I view it a lot of the time. I would just kind of want to hide away in my own little world, because it's hard to live in the world sometimes the way that it is.
I think that's more relevant now with the whole pandemic and everything going on. It's kind of like the most relevant it could be at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we'd really relate to that, to be honest with you, Arielle. We talk a lot about that, don't we, man? I think one of the cool things even though COVID's been such a difficult time, I think that a lot of the stuff that's taken away in people's lives really is bonus stuff. It's stuff that our lives shouldn't depend upon, in terms of going out and doing this and doing that. We should be happy with our foundation, the simple things that we have. And I think a lot of people, like we've reflected on a lot, haven't we, man? Is that if you take this as an opportunity to build on your foundation, then when everything comes back, your life will be even better, because that's just bonus stuff then. And the core of who you are is cool, and you're happy with who you are, And I really agree with you. I mean, social media, I think, is such a dangerous weapon, now. And I mean, I've the whole of lockdown, I've really struggled with it, and had to detach from it a little bit, because I think it's the wrong platform for what a lot of people use it for, particularly with the music business, mate. I really, really respond to that. Look, like with Queen, I say to the boys in the band over here, is that I think sometimes if you look back through history, you have to make that decision to rebel against what people are telling you what to do. in order to break the tide and go on to the next movement and that next part of your creativity. Because if people continuously just do what they're told, then nothing ever changes. You end up with this constant swarm of very similar sounding, bands and musicians, and music doesn't evolve or move on. So no, I 100% relate to that, definitely. Yeah. No, it's cool. No, it's good. It's cool. It's nice to have a bit of a serious discussion. Isn't it?
It's really good.
Yeah, it's cool. One of the questions we like to ask artists, which is really for the fans, because we kind of think the same thing with bands we're into, is what their lives away from music. I mean, it comes across, Arielle, that you kind of very much sort of live and breathe, the music. Is there anything away from that? Some people talk about family, pets. Some people talk about hobbies they've picked up in lockdown. Is there anything yourself that you have away from the music, from guitar?
Well, it's interesting because before COVID stuff, I was on the road and I was never in one place longer than 3 weeks. And that was kind of a record I had with myself for whatever reason. I was just always on the road. And during COVID, I've kind of developed a new way of being. Instead of living out of my suitcase or whatever, I've actually tried to develop like a home life and a family life, which is nice. I've never had that before. Outside of that, and trying to have things that I enjoy, like nature. I love being outside. I love the ocean. The other thing that I've started doing is I started a nonprofit called the Tonewood Forest, and it's a nonprofit that we are growing and conserving trees that are typically used for musical instruments, such as mahogany, ebony, rosewood. And then we have plots all over. Right now we have 2.5, almost 3 plots, Florida, Pennsylvania, and soon to be England, where we grow the species that are local to the area. So Florida is mahogany. Honduran mahogany grows locally. It's as a native tree there. So yeah, I've been working on replenishing back what I've been given from the guitars, and of course creating guitars for other people. These are endangered trees because people like us and furniture builders and things are cutting them down and not replenishing them. So that's been my thing. I'm just a little geek. I have a little hydroponic system where I'm growing these trees, and it's really frustrating sometimes because depending on what the species of tree is, they can take a long time to actually sprout and become something. So it's also been teaching me patience. So anything outdoors, nature, gardening, is normally what I'm doing if I'm not doing something music related.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool, mate. Now, as a guitarist myself, as I say, I'm really into vintage gear, particularly pedals. I'm terrible with pedals. As you're preparing to return to playing live, what's the setup you reckon you'll be playing? I mean, I don't know if you're similar to me, but I've been planning in my head and at home sort of my rig and getting ready to return back. What do you reckon you'll be using?
Well, I am in the process of doing the exact same guitar. So before I had a little bit of a complicated rig, and I've just, over the years, I've been gradually simplifying what I have. So I used to have this massive pedal board full of, normally I was just using the 1 amp. So I would have different chains so I could have almost like a different channel. So I'd have my lead chain and my clean chain. And if I hit one button, it turns all of them on. And then the other button turns the other ones on, which I need to have when I'm singing. Because that's the thing I always have to think about is simplify. So when I'm singing, I hit one button, don't have to look down for that long, done. But what I've started to do is my boyfriend actually makes guitar amps. Yeah. So he's been, what I've normally done is I've had 2 amps, like the Eric Johnson thing, where instead of doing the pedals, I was changing amps. So I'd have 1 clean amp and 1 lead amp, but then I would push the lead amp. I'd have it like just barely breaking up and then push the pedal to do dirty rhythm stuff and then lead stuff. And then the clean amp would just be clean with a bunch of headroom. Now what I've done is I've started to use his amps And I just break up the amp itself. I turn it all the way up, and hopefully it's, smaller, like a 12 watt, 14 watt amp, and turn that all the way up, and then control how much gain I have with the volume knob, and then also have the second clean amp that does the same thing that it did before. This way, I only have two pedals. I use the TC electronic chorus flange from the 80s, as well as the Cattle and Bread Echo Rec, and I use that only on the clean channel.
Love the Echo Rec.
They're great pedals. And then on the clean channel, on the dirty channel, it's literally just the amp breaking up itself, which has been cool. And then I just have an A/B switch, and that way it's easier. The only thing, but then I have to think about it, is like, if I have backline, that's going to be harder to do if somebody gives me like a deluxe reverb, and then I have to break that up. So there has to be a pedal, an overdrive pedal, just on the side, just in case that happens. But I'm really trying to get away from pedals, and I'm trying to rely on the guitars and the amps.
How do you reckon you'll get on in terms of singing? Because obviously it's a lot for you to, like you say before, it was you had the switches and stuff, but now obviously just doing the volume knob, it's a completely different thing.
Yes, it's more intuitive, I think.
Well, you can base it. I always like the thing with the volume knob is because you're reacting to the room as well. You're reacting to how the speakers are breaking up that particular night, and you feel like you've got that control. Whereas I always find when I rely on gain stages, it can sometimes be on a completely different level depending on how the monitor mix is coming through. So I definitely think that's cool. What do you use for your dirty amp? It's getting nice and nerdy now, isn't it?
Oh, no,
see how excited
cool.
I get. What do you use for your dirty amp? Is it a Marshall style, and then do you have Fender style for the cleans, or is it sort of Fender across the board? What are you doing with the breakup?
Yeah, it's usually kind of Fender style. The one that I have right now is kind of like a deluxe, without and then having a reverb, or like a Dumble style, which I know can kind of be Marshall-y, like Dumble deluxe kind of cross vibe is normally what I go for.
I always like it because it feels like the best of both worlds. It's not too far into the Marshall world, but you get enough of it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Marshall fan, and I don't love a lot of Fender stuff. It's very specific guitar amps that really have a nice breakup or offer something really warm without a ton of volume. So I like the deluxe reverb a ton. The deluxe, tweed deluxe, or just regular deluxe.
Cool.
Yeah, things like that. But I'm experimenting too. I was playing 15 inch speaker in my cab for a while, and I've moved down to 12, kind of experimenting with that, and tubes. I've been experimenting with basically everything, because I want to come back strong and feel like when I actually get to play again, I feel really inspired, and when people hear it, they're like, holy crap, what happened? Definitely the more I dial it back, I think the more classic, timeless guitar tone you get, the people are used to hearing. Not identical, because I'm not copying anybody's gear, but the closer you get to guitar, cable, amp, I think the more people are really used to hearing that sound for almost 100 years now with the electric guitar. So it's a process, as you know. It's a lot. So by the time I tour, I'll have it figured out, at least for this next phase.
We'll have to come down and do a little rig rundown.
Yeah,
do them.
That'd be fun.
UK, we'll have to have a little nose around and hear it in action. That's cool.
Yeah. Speaking of touring, with gigs seemingly returning, how do you plan to celebrate the album? Are you kind of going off on tour again soon-ish?
Well, yeah, right.
It's hard to plan.
I can't go, oh, definitely going on tour, can I? It's like
No. Well, that's the thing. I got offered a gig, a touring gig in September in the UK, but who knows if that's going to happen, right? So I've just been kind of watching. And then next year, there's definitely going to be a bunch of touring. But what we did was I had my band and I go into the studio, and we played the album front to back live and then filmed it. And then, of course, we recorded it to tape. So I've just been editing the video from that. We have 4 cameras. And, it just seemed like a cooler opportunity than just playing to an empty room, which is a little bit depressing. It's like, well, we're going to be having fun in the recording studio. We'll just film that. And people can kind of see what it was like when I was recording the actual album, since I didn't film the entire thing doing that. So it's not the same, these live stream concerts, but that's what I've started to do. I've got 4 of them that are going to be going on every month starting in May. That first one in May is going to be the Analog Girl and Digital World album. And yeah, thankfully I wrote it so I could replicate it live. So it was a 4-piece. So there's no overdubs. Literally, it is the way that it is. I did not change anything. I cannot change anything because there's footage of it. So it's just a really big pain in the butt. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing. It's not the same, but it's something.
Cool. That's cool. Finally, a question that I like to kind of always end on, that's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band from the past and one from the present, who would they be?
From the past, meaning like they've died?
Well, it could be like retired. It could be,
I mean, they don't need to have moved on. It's not the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
We give quite a lot of leeway. Like I think we class maybe late. Well, I think the 90s will class as old. Would you class 90s as old? I mean, I was busy being born.
Yeah, you could say.
I was born in the 90s.
Yeah, I was born in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm not that old.
Yeah,
come on.
So we're all born in the 90s.
We'll say late 90s is like old.
Yeah.
And like.
I'm offended.
We don't be, because we're all busy being born.
I mean, I feel pretty old now.
Yeah. Name. I'll tell you what. The best way to do it is if you name a band that you think's from the past, and then we can be the judges. If we believe they're old enough.
Okay, so you mean touring like on the same bill or as an opening act?
So we always do it as if you'd be the opening act, and then. The new band or the older band would be next, and then the other one would be headlining.
Mm.
Okay, so I'd say, man, there's so many of them. Okay, the first one would be Jimi Hendrix.
Nice.
And maybe like Yes in the late 70s.
Ooh, very nice.
That would be pretty awesome. There's a few others, but I'm like, nah, that would like. I was thinking The Who, but I'm like, nah, you can't outdo that. That would be a hard gig.
Who would you have from the present?
Okay, present. I think Jeff Beck. I mean, he's not present either. He's still touring though. Okay, so let's just say Joe Bonamassa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yep. Yeah.
That might be cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's probably as present.
I don't want it to trouble you. I don't want you to lose sleep. It's difficult.
I'm losing sleep about that. I have too many.
No, I like that. So we'd have Arielle, then maybe Bonamassa, and then Hendrix / Yes, depending.
Wow, what a combo!
I know, that'd be badass, wouldn't it? I like the idea of Hendrix and Yes like forming a supergroup, because that would never happen. But it could be amazing.
It
could be amazing. Like cosmic blues, like acid rock, and then progressive 70s rock. That's the marriage that the world needs.
Yes.
I think so.
No, I agree. No, I think we've conquered what the world needs.
Yep.
So I think we should probably bring it to a close. Thanks ever so much for chatting to us, Arielle. Really enjoyed chatting to you, mate. And look forward to when you come over. Like we say, we'll have to link up and look at some gear and be nerdy, and we can't wait to see you live. For those that haven't already, make sure you check out Arielle's most recent single, Inside and Outside, from her forthcoming album, Analog Girl in a Digital World, out May 7th. And make sure you follow her on all the normal social medias, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. And when she comes over to the UK, make sure you get yourself down to a gig. I did all right with that, didn't I? I nearly lost it in the middle, but I did all right. Thanks ever so much, Arielle. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, guys. It was fun.
Have a good rest of your day. See you in a bit.
You too.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
I enjoyed that. It was a different kind of chat for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was like something that we've not done before. Where we kind of we haven't had somebody on to date that's had their own signature guitar.
Yeah, it was nice to
You know.
see that on the video and to talk about that process, particularly from a guitarist's point of view. It was nice to have a bit of an overall chat about sort of, I don't know, like lockdown and how you've dealt with that, and also the overall music scene and like I was saying, she struggles with that aspect, you know, of social media and stuff. It was something that me and you are quite conscious of and talk a lot about, sort of on the sofa, but you know, without having the camera on, innit? You know, sort of about our struggles with that. So it's nice to bring that into the light a little bit from more of a podcast Beyond the Vibe sort of perspective.
Yeah,
I liked her, man. She's cool.
Yeah, just like, you know, real. And
good gear chat as well. We got good gear chat in there, don't we?
That's what I'm saying. It's a first.
I'm getting fed well with gear chats lately. I feel like I'm getting my feeding. And if Kitty don't get fed, Kitty gets mad.
Oh my God.
Don't know what that means, but yeah. But no, I enjoyed it. It was good. It was good and really interesting, like we said, to hear the dynamics of her relationship with Brian May. You know, it's really cool, and I respect the fact she comes across like a true musician, whatever that means. You know, it's something that I look at Neil Young for. You know, she seems like she's doing it for herself and nobody else, which is surely, you know, the mindset that you should be. You want to walk away and be truly proud of it and excited about the music you create, and I feel like she has that.
I think, you know, when you're doing it for yourself, you make your best kind of material, because you know you're not trying to appease other people. You're doing it, you know, your own outlet. It's your own thing.
I mean, the concept for me of being a solo musician, it'd be, I think it's quite scary.
Yeah.
You know, because it all weighs on your shoulders a little bit.
We have talked about this, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you the question, what would you prefer to be? But I'm pretty sure I've asked you before.
Not on air.
Have I not asked you on air? Would you, for the viewers, would you prefer to be a solo musician? If you was a player and a singer or whatever, would you prefer to be a solo musician or in a band?
For me, I've always thought that it comes with a lot of pressures, you know, being a solo artist, because it all hinges on you, doesn't it? Like, you know, the songwriting, you know, the guitar licks, this whole
not the band of you,
just everything, the image, just like top to bottom, it's just all you. And you know, even when you go on stage, you go on live, it's you. Your name's in lights.
Yeah, you've got to carry the whole thing, haven't you?
Yeah, people have come for you.
Yeah, like
not the band.
If you're shit, the gig's shit. Because that's you.
That's it, though. It's, you know.
Because I can have like a poor night, and people come up to me and go, "Oh, I really enjoyed that tonight. It was really good." You know, because I can just move around like a tosser, and people, and if because the band is so good, bless them, it carries. You know, if one of us is struggling that particular night for whatever reason, you know, and when you're all on it, you really feel like a collective force. You know, but then again, I suppose if you're on your own and you're really killing it, it's like, wow, I'm doing this like by myself. You know,
I think it depends on what kind of person you are.
Yes, that's probably a big thing.
Yeah, because like I think some people like really revel in that thing of like, oh, it is me, and like I can control this and make it, you know, what I want it to be. Whereas me, I'd look at this and I think, oh Christ, like, what am I gonna
I think it depends. A lot of people tend to do it. If you look through musical history, they'll be in a band and then they'll go solo. You know, I think because they've had that time in a band, they understand how the musical world works. They understand how to. Whereas when you're in a band, it's nice to do that together because the challenges come, you survive them and learn together. You know, so when you've come out the other side of that and you've got all them skills and knowledge, you can carry that forward on your own a little bit. And solo artists, I don't think are ever really on their own because you've got managers, you've got PR people, you know, you've got people around you that will help support that, and family and friends, you know. And
it's true, yeah.
I don't think you're ever truly on your own, but I don't know, there might be some people that are, you know, truly doing it on their own.
Yeah, I mean, it
might be a lonely place to be.
That's
Imagine a bad gig as a solo artist.
That's what I think.
You are.
And I mean, I'm probably thinking glass half empty, because as soon as you were like, what would it be like as like a solo artist, I was thinking like, what if I have a terrible night and it's just me? I'm just there with my tambourine.
Well, if my gear goes wrong, like if my pedal board cuts out, which does happen a lot, or my amp goes, the band can keep playing and I can just pull it out, you know. Whereas if it happens and I'm on my own, I've got to be funny or I've got to redirect.
Got to do something.
if I shit me pants, like physically shit myself in a band, nobody'd know. If I did it on stage,
true. And it's spotlights on you.
It's spotlights on me. You know, people. You know, it's very hard to carry that. And we all have off nights. We all have days where we wake up and we're not feeling great, particularly when you're touring, so you're in and out of hotels and it's hard. You know, so shout out to the solo musicians.
Yes, and on that note. Well,
you can donate. the line at the bottom of the video. But thanks for checking out this week's episode of Beyond the Vibe.
Yes, if you like us on Facebook, you'll find that every Wednesday there'll be a new teaser out with a reveal of a new guest, so you can find out who that is. And on a Saturday, we release the new episode every week from 10 a.m. on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. But if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you don't get my seal of approval, I'm afraid.
Everybody needs.
You got to come over to YouTube because you get that extra element because you can see us.
And if you're on the YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button below, hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Give us all the love and all the joy. We love doing this, and we do it for you guys, checking us out at home, and for the bands that we get to chinwag with.
Yes.
So thanks to Arielle for chatting to us this week, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, see you next week.